Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. How prevalent is sexual violence in areas where conflicts are raging? What is the United Nations doing to help defuse these conflicts and help to prevent them in the future? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. There are many horrific activities and events that take place in various areas where conflicts are raging, and one is sexual violence. My guest today is someone who's very knowledgeable of this particular problem and is working to help defuse it. My guest today is Ms. Zainab Hawa Bangura of Sierra Leone. Ms. Bangura is the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict. In this capacity, she serves as chair of the interagency network UN Action Against Sexual Violence and Conflict. Ms. Bangura has over 20 years of policy, diplomatic, and practical experience in the fields of governance, conflict resolution, and reconciliation in Africa. Ms. Bangura, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you being with me today. Let's start right at the top and talk about your position, the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict. When was this position created? Why was it created? And basically, what do you do?
Well, the position was created about 4 years ago. And basically, it was the Security Council in Resolution 1888, which mandated the Secretary General to appoint a special representative that will provide strategic and global framework and advocacy leadership to be able to lead and to coordinate UN and global effort and response in addressing the issue of sexual violence, and also to be the global voice for these women and boys and men and girls who are actually affected by sexual violence.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a small office, but you still have the UN agencies out there to tap into, and you have a group, I want to make sure I get this right, it's the UN Action Against Sexual Violence and Conflict, which, as I understand it, consists of like the UN High Commission for Refugees, the UN Children's Fund, UN Population Fund. How do they work together with your office to deal with this horrific problem?
The issue of sexual violence has been an issue that has been addressed by various agencies, programs, and departments. Basically, what the Security Council did was, how can we get somebody who can coordinate and lead this struggle? So they wanted to have somebody who can bring together all these agencies so that they can actually work in a manner in which they can respond properly. So that's why, as the SRSG, I chair this consortium of agencies and programs, each one bringing on the table their comparative advantage: UNICEF, UNHCR, and UNDP, OCHA, all of these UN agencies who have spread all over the country, all over the world. And that's the reason why my mandate is global. I'm not restricted to one continent. I work all over the world, in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere there is a conflict. As long as it is on the Security Council agenda, our job is to able to advocate, to lead, and to coordinate this effort and to make sure the right approach is used to be able to eradicate sexual violence in conflicts.
Exactly. And our viewers can go to www.stopratenow.org for more information on what we're talking about today. Now, you just recently visited the Democratic Republic of Congo and Somalia. Let's get a little bit of, we could deal with the whole program on each one probably, or just one of them. What is the status in the Democratic Republic of Congo? Now, I know it shifts from day to day, but there's been a tremendous amount of violence. The UN, the largest UN peacekeeping forces there with 20,000 peacekeepers. But what is going on, or what is the status right now, shall we say?
Where we are with the DRC, the issue of sexual violence in conflict is still a huge problem. And a lot of support and services have been provided by the UN Action, by NGOs, by bilateral partners. But the problem continues for several reasons. One, the country is extremely huge. Two, there are a lot of militias. In North Kivu, there are about 20 militias. In South Kivu, about the same size. In Oriental, where I visited. So in total, you have about 100 to 150 different militias operating. And each of these militias are committing the same crimes. So as a result of that, the effort that is being done by the UN and by other agencies is actually not reflected in the amount of cases that we're able to deal with. So what I did when I went to the DRC was to have a political commitment from the government to be able to diffuse the situation, to make sure the government takes national leadership in this. So we have now a written commitment, a joint communique we signed with the Prime Minister. I was able to meet President Kabila. He gave me his personal commitment. I met the President of the Senate. So I met all the stakeholders from local, at the provincial level, at the national level, the politicians, the head of state and everybody, to be able to bring them together so we could speak in one voice. And I met all the UN agencies. So once we've got that political commitment, which I have submitted to the Secretary General, as well as members of the Security Council are aware of it now, we're going to go now to send a team to look deeper, to see how can we do to bring everybody on the table, to be able to have proper data management, and to be able to provide the services that are required. The advantage about DRC, they have a legal framework. They have a national strategy. It's all an issue of implementation, which is contrary to Somalia. Somalia, you know, is just literally coming. The conflict is still ongoing, but at least the government has taken a lot of Mogadishu. So Somalia doesn't have a law. So it doesn't have a legal framework, so we have to design one. I will be going to the donor conference on Somalia. Hopefully there, I'll be able to sign a commitment with the government, and then I'll send my team to go deeper into it and actually make sure we have an implementation plan. So in the case of Somalia, we still have to help them with the legal framework so that rape in war becomes a crime, able to train the police, to train the judiciary, and put all the structures and the system in place to be able to address the problem.
Well, let's just take a sample country, say the Democratic Republic of Congo. We were talking about that, and look at that and focus on a young woman who was raped, violently raped. What types of barriers? She obviously has physical violation, but what types of barriers will she encounter? She will have internal psychological problems to deal with, undoubtedly, but also within the community. How will she be accepted in the community, either by her husband or spouse or whatever the case might be, or by the family, or even by the community at large? And what are you and the UN agencies doing to try to help her to overcome this and to really get back to a more well-adjusted life that she had prior to this physical violence?
The first thing we try to do is to be able to access the person so that the person can access the services. Services include medical, they include psychosocial, and even legal, so that she could take action against the rapists. Because a lot of these women, when they are physically abused, the damage it causes on them, you literally have to reconstruct them. So the medical services have to be there. The same problem we're having in Syria, in Somalia, and lots of these areas. Once we put those services, it is at that level we're able to identify the people who have been sexually abused. Once they get the services, then you now come to the psychosocial support, because she's traumatized, she has been ostracized by her family. 90% of the women I have spoken to since I've been traveled are abandoned by their families, their husbands, leave them. Some of them have, in the case of DRC, I met somebody who has 5 children before she was raped. She got pregnant. The husband, the family of the husband threw her out because she and her 6 children now have been abandoned, so they are destitute. So we have NGOs who provide safe homes for these women until you help them to rebuild their life. So you have to be able to provide support and resources for them to be able to start economic activities, whether it's agriculture, it's microfinancing, whatever is it, but these women have to go. But at the same time, we're now also engaging religious leaders so that they can look at this issue as a moral issue, so that they can work with the communities. So the communities can start looking at these women as victims and have some amount of sympathy for them to be able to absorb them. In so doing, we're trying to change the scenario way, because what is happening, the perpetrators walk free. It is the victims who have to hide their faces in the shadow because they are so ashamed, they are so stigmatized. And what we're trying to do is to stigmatize the perpetrators now, so that the community starts knowing and realizing and accepting these people are actually ruining not only an individual, they are ruining a family and a community and a nation. So the community has to take action against these individuals to be able to make sure they also suffer. So we're trying to put all the structures in place so they can have the medical support, the psychosocial support, the legal support, so that they can be able to prosecute and take action against the individuals who have committed these crimes against them. At the same time, work with the community. So in my visit in the DRC, I met the military prosecutor for the military people who are committing the crime. I met the civilian prosecutor. I spoke to the Minister of Justice. We're working with them. And in the case of trying to end immunity, we are supporting, UNDP supporting what we call mobile courts. So the court can move into the communities where these people are, so that they themselves can can be witnesses and give evidence against the perpetrators, and the perpetrators can be tried. And once they are tried, they are prosecuted, they are sentenced. We're working with the government now to move these perpetrators to some safe area where they are prison, because the government has not been able to build prisons all across the country. But they have centralized areas where there are prisons, so the people can take the perpetrators to this prison to allow them to serve their sentence.
Do you find that this is somewhat prevalent in every country, that so often it's the community that ostracizes, and the family perhaps, that ostracizes the victim, yet at the same time sets up roadblocks to getting the perpetrator, to actually focusing attention on that, blaming the victim for the problem and letting the perpetrator walk free? Is that pretty prevalent in a large number of countries?
What we have discovered is there is a strong sense of denial and silence, a sense of shame, because it affects the dignity of the woman. It dehumanizes her, it degrades her to a level where she cannot be able to face anybody. One of the experiences we are having in Syria is leading to a lot of honor killing. Women and girls who are being raped, their families prefer them dead than to accept in the community, my daughter was raped. It's a very shameful act. So families are also under cultural taboos. How can a father face? There is an incident in Kenya in the Dadaab camp where a father was shot when he was trying to fight for his daughter who was being raped. In front of him, his daughter was being raped, so he was going after the rapist, and he was shot dead. It's a very big issue in countries in conflict. In Mogadishu, before we went, last year, we discovered that 17,000 women were raped. That's the documented UN figure. When I visited Mogadishu, there were 513 IDP camps. 70% of the occupants of the camps are women and children. Majority of this, almost 90%, don't have husbands. So they are in these tents where there are no doors. The rape takes place in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Because the militias are living in the camps, the police are living in the camps, the soldiers are living because of the food that is being provided in the camps. So women are easily targeted because the people know where they are. So they go into your hut, which has no door, they rape you, and all you know is a man raped me with a gun. So it's so prevalent, it's just unbelievable. So it's a big problem in most countries of conflicts.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is an independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'll be back in just a moment after this important message. Welcome back to our program. Today we're looking at sexual violence in areas of conflict and what the United Nations is doing to help defuse this problem and help really to prevent it in the future. My guest today is an expert in this area. My guest today is Ms. Zainab Hawa Bangura of Sierra Leone, who is the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict. Ms. Bangura has over 20 years of policy, diplomatic, and practical experience in the fields of governance, conflict resolution, and reconciliation in Africa. We're talking about violence, sexual violence in areas of conflict, and you mentioned Democratic Republic of Congo and Somalia also. But then we went into Syria and talked about honor killings. Is this something that is starting to break down? Are the governments, are the religious groups working to change that? That's a cultural attribute. It's something that's embedded in the culture. Are they working to overcome that so that people have a different way of evaluating what happened and how to help the victim more so than the perpetrator?
Thank you very much. Because of these reasons, all you have mentioned, this is why we have brought in one of the key principles of national ownership, leadership, and responsibility. We have realized that this is not just a UN issue. It's an issue that belongs to member states, and the United Nations, through the Security Council, has actually adopted groundbreaking resolution. By so doing, they have created global legal framework and developed various tools. But we can only succeed in dealing with this issue, addressing it and eradicating it, by making sure that national government takes responsibility and the different players at the national level. Because whatever you may say, the reality is that national governments have the primary legal and moral responsibility to protect their citizens. So this issue of sexual violence, it's not only a government issue, it's an health issue, it's a moral issue, it's a development issue, it's a social issue. So the only way you can address it is by making sure all the stakeholders in a country know what their specific roles and responsibilities are. The parliamentarians, the legislatures, need to draft the laws that makes it a crime. So it does not only become a crime at the international level, the ICC is a war crime, but at the level, at the national level, it should be a crime. I give you an example. In the case of Côte d'Ivoire, it's a crime against the moral. It's not a crime against the rapist, against the victim. So when you rape a woman, you go to court, the argument is a crime against the moral of the person. It's not a crime against the person. So we have to change that. The religious leaders have to see that this is a morality issue. In the DRC where I just came, militia people were raping babies, 6 months to 12 months, 1 year to 3 years. That's large number. So I said to the religious leaders, you have to go to your pulpits. What best way can a community or country say you want to destroy the community? The best way you want to destroy is destroy the children. When you rape children as young as that, it means you don't want the next generation to survive. So this is a crime not just against the individual, against the family, against the community, against the country. Apart from the fact that women constitute over 52% of the population, when you destroy them mentally, psychologically, you are not going to allow them to contribute in the development agenda of a country. I said to the media, you have to understand the devastating effect this has on society. You should be there to report it, to investigate it, to make sure it's brought to light. I spoke to the police. You must know how to investigate this crime so that by your proper investigation, the prosecutors can prosecute. I met the judiciary people. I spoke to them that you must be able to prosecute it and make sure that people who commit this crime go for years in jail without seeing anything, so that they understand, and put a cost. It is only when people know that it's very expensive, that the price I'm going to pay is huge. I will be ostracized by my community. I will be in jail. I will suffer a lot of consequences, that they will be very careful and think for a long time before they can commit the crime. So that's why when I travel, I make sure I discuss and engage everybody around to provide space. Because there is such a culture of denial and silence, most people don't want to talk about it, they don't want to hear it. And the people who are campaigning, the NGOs and civil society, find it very difficult to actually occupy a space where this becomes an issue. So when I go, I talk to the media, I talk to the radio, I talk to the television, I see everybody, I discuss it, and I allow people to come together and open the space and get a commitment from the government to lead the situation and identify a key focal point. In the case of the DRC, is the Minister of Gender. Now we're trying to find support to build her capacity to provide the leadership that is required in the DRC to actually manage and coordinate this issue. So obviously this is a national issue. It belongs to member states, and member states have to bring everybody on board to be able to make sure they address it. It is only then you can ensure sustainability. And by ensuring sustainability, you can eventually eradicate it. And also it's a preventive measure because it's a deterrent. When somebody knows that this is what is going to happen to me, they will not commit the crime. So it's both a preventive and also an issue that is going to address it.
Now, today, the Department of Peacekeeping Operations, DPKO, has 17 peacekeeping missions around the world. And, of course, we've seen how critical they are in so many different areas. We talked about the one in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Along the way, though, unfortunately, a few of the peacekeepers have committed sexual crimes themselves, and of course they're out. The zero tolerance policy of the United Nations is if you commit the crime, then you're gone, and it's up to the host government to prosecute that person or to extract retribution, whatever the case might be. But how critical are the peacekeepers in working with you and helping to provide assistance to the general population? You mentioned the IDPs, internal displacement camps, displaced persons camp. We'll get it in a moment, IDP. And how important is are the peacekeeping operations to working with you to help protect the public and also to be available to help prevent these problems in the future?
The Department of Peacekeeping Operation is one of our strongest ally. They are a member of the United Nations Action Against Sexual Violence. Thirdly, even in our team of experts who go out to countries, working with national countries to develop the legislation, to train the police, to train the military, and to work with the judiciary, the Department of Peacekeeping has seconded one person. They have one person actually in my office that is working with us. But most importantly, coming now to the peacekeepers themselves, we have provided a lot of training for peacekeepers because they help us to detect. Because the issue of sexual violence doesn't happen by accident. It's premeditated, it's planned before it is executed. If sometimes what we have found out in the DRC, in a lot of areas where there are mineral resources, militias, when they want to remove these people, what they use is sexual violence to be able to drive the population out. Fathers run with their daughters, their wives run, everybody, when they know that they are going to be sexually abused. So we train peacekeepers an early warning so that they're able to predict when it is going to happen. And again, in the DRC, we found out that a lot of the rape takes place when women go out of the vicinity of where they live. So the peacekeepers provide escorts. When women have market days, they walk from villages to go to a big market center. Peacekeepers provide security within the vicinity of that. So they have actually become a very strong ally to work with us. Our office, you can say, is in principle provide the advocacy, the ideas, and then we work with colleagues out on the field. And so, as I said, one of our biggest allies we work with are peacekeepers because they are there to protect, and they have this issue of prevention, of protecting of civilians in peacekeeping missions. And those civilians, of course, include women and children. So they are there to be able to make sure they prevent the issue of sexual violence, identify where it's taken place, and know the circumstances, the situation where sexual violence can take place, and preempt it and protect it and prevent it before it takes place.
Well, in the last minute or so we have of the program, I know you've touched on many of the obstacles, but are there other obstacles in your path as far as impeding achieving your mission? And are there other things that maybe can be done to help the mission be more successful?
Well, the challenge, we have several challenges. One of the challenges we're having is the denial of people refusing to accept. And this is the reason why the Secretary General himself is one of our biggest champions. He takes the issue of sexual violence very seriously, to the extent that whenever he has meetings with heads of states, he discusses with them. He addresses like the African Union, because invariably most of the incidents happen within the continent of Africa, because that's where we have a lot of the countries in conflict. When he addressed recently the heads of states, he included sexual violence as well as during the press conference. So the challenge is supporting the victims, providing services for the victims, training the government, helping them to set up the structures, to take national ownership and leadership. That way we can be able to take our hands off and try to eradicate and end impunity.
Well, Ms. Bangura, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence, it's an extremely important topic, and it's one we need to learn much more about. But I want to thank you so very much for bringing us up to date on your activities. I want to thank you for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.